Land back, everybody. Welcome to the Revolutionary Book Trap. Welcome to the another evening edition of the Revolutionary Book Trap, where we explore all kinds of literature in an anti-colonial way.
Don't look at me.
This is how we have to act now that the book trap is at night, y'all. At least at night in the United States. But we're an international organization all around the world. So it's daytime in some places for our comrades, this afternoon sometimes for our comrades. And so yes. But yeah, land back, welcome. Once you come into the room, make sure you say hello and make sure you are sharing, liking, commenting, and subscribing to our YouTube channel, Black Hammer TV, youtube.com/Black Hammer TV. That way you can get all the notifications of when we do go live, not just for the Revolutionary Book Trap, but what's another show, for instance, that we have tomorrow?
The Vanguard.
Yes, exactly.
You will also see us.
Yes, you also see us. Exactly. Right. So make sure you are sharing, like, and subscribing. All right. And if you haven't been following along, we are reading Open Veins of Latin America. All right. And so before we get started, let's introduce ourselves, and let's tell the people who we is. Go ahead. You can get started.
Okay, me. Land back, y'all. My name is Watakame. I represent the Coca and the Huirarica people of colonized Mexico, as well as the poor and working class. I use they them pronouns, and I am the chief of staff of the Ministry of People's Affairs, where we work day in and day out to overturn the material contradictions, right? Infrastructure, this Rona stuff, weather, stuff like that. Just helping our people be self-reliant in those aspects. So,
yeah, land back. And I am Chief Oju, representing the nations of Africa and Boriken. I am coming from the working class with some petty blue contradictions now, and I use he, him pronouns. I'm the chief of agitation and propaganda. So bringing you this political education, letting you know about the revolution as well, making sure that we stay informed and educated about who our revolutionary ancestors were, what they did, and what we can learn from them, right? Which is what, this book is taught us, but all books in the Revolutionary Book Trap, teach us.
That's right.
Yes. So land back, Ren, land back, Cheen. All right. Land back, everybody. Make sure, again, you're sharing. Hashtag share when you shared it. Put it into Facebook groups. Put it into your DMs. Put it on your tweets, on your tweeters. On your tweeters, put on your Gab if you're on Gab. If you want a Black Planet, if that still exists, that was like the African Facebook before Facebook. If you have that, MySpace, I don't know. Yes, do it. Oh, Landback City Builder B. Yes. What are we drinking?
Un cafecito.
Un cafecito.
Cafecito, because it's been a day of serving the masses.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that we're up and ready and alert for this book trap, and also it's just good.
It is good. We are using and really related to the reading. So we're drinking Cafe Crema, which is like a Puerto Rican coffee brand. And as you read in the book, coffee is something that not even from Puerto Rico.
Exactly.
It's not even from there. And I learned that reading this book. I actually learned a lot about, I thought so many things were from these places, but to find out they weren't, we'll talk about it, y'all.
Yes,
but yes, we are reading Open Veins of Latin America by Eduardo Galeano. And if you don't have the book, you can go to blackhammer.org/library, and that's where you can get a copy of the book so you can follow along. Do you remember what pages we read for today?
It was the beginning of chapter 2.
Yes, the beginning of chapter 2. Yes, pages 59 to 83. So that's what we'll be going over. So go ahead to blackhammer.org/library and get that PDF so that you can follow along. Um, but then before we do that, we want to make sure that you donate. All right. So if you're watching now, if you're watching later, and it's not, it's not live, whenever you're watching this, you should take the opportunity to donate to Black Hammer Org on Cash App. And why should they donate?
Because again, it doesn't matter when you watch this, we're still going to be doing work for the masses. No matter the day, no matter the year, no matter the weather condition, we out there serving the people through, like, on the ground, like actually materially helping them, not just raising funds for an event that will benefit nobody, right? Like, we're out there every single day, um, giving people what they need, right? And tell me another organization that does that, like, materially puts everything they get directly back into the hands of the masses. Nobody. So, but us.
Exactly. And what other organization works with the people all day and then caps the day doing a book club? Nobody.
Other orgs plan a whole month to have
a single book club. Yes. No, but we've been doing it weekly for multiple years now at this point. So that's who he is. And so, yeah, make sure you donate. And then we're going to get into our Black Hammer book trap trivia. All right. So, yes. Yeah, Teray says we do it all, baby.
Yes, we do.
We do it all. All right. Let's see if y'all know this one. Please, y'all better know it. Go ahead. You want to read it?
I better come quick with the answers, too. The question is, what slowed down sugar production in many places like Brazil, Puerto Rico, and Haiti the most? A, slave rebellions. B, lack of ships. C, abolitionism. I can never say that word. D, newspaper editorials. Write about it.
The answer should be obvious, especially for the revolutionaries out there. All right, drop your answers in the comments. What slowed down sugar production in many places like Brazil, Puerto Rico, and Haiti the most? Slave rebellions, lack of ships, abolitionism, or newspaper editorials.
I know the liberals are confused.
Yeah, the liberals are very confused right now. They're so confused. They don't know what to do. It's like the meme with the guy with the two buttons and the sweating.
We need to write about it.
Yeah, it's like write about it. What? Angela Davis? What? Which one? What? They don't know what to do. We're seeing a lot of A's. Okay, well, let's see what the answer is. Let's see. A. Yes, A. It's A, y'all. Slave rebellions, right? You know what? And that's the exact mood. That's the exact mood our people have.
Exactly.
To really overcome it, you gotta have that. You gotta have that positivity. You gotta have that mood in order to really, fight against what's out there, right? You can't come into that. That sounds
exactly. See, the fact that we're all on the same page because we're all excited all the time.
Yes, right.
All the time.
It's hard work, right? But we know it's gonna pay off. It pays off now, but we gonna know it pays off in the end as well. When all our people are free.
Exactly.
So,
and that's exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting. It should be exciting to y'all, right? The possibility of the future should be exciting if you see your people as true leaders and heroes, like that, because them, the world's going to change because you have them, right? Land back. All right, so we're gonna get into our read that backs. Make sure you bring your read that back. So read that back is a quote from the book that you like, you have questions about, you unite with, maybe you disagree with, you just want to bring it up. You just post that into the comments with hashtag RDB or hashtag read that back, and that way we can talk about it, right? But we got some of our own. So, in the meantime, as we go over our own, listen, and ask your questions about ours, but drop your read that backs in the comments. All right. And again, remember, share, and put hashtag share when you share that. I want people to tell me where they shared it, to their Facebook groups, share it to your pizza lovers group, share it to your, singles group. People be joining those on Facebook. No, people be joining.
Relax.
I know. No, I'm talking. I don't.
Oh, you on that Facebook dating?
No, I'm not Facebook dating app. No, that's actually, I think, might be the scariest one.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying to me. I don't know. Oh yeah, but no, drop it wherever you need to. You could drop if you're on Facebook dating, drop it on your first Facebook date. That's your new bio.
It's a good buffer.
Yeah,
Are they with the PE or not?
yeah, exactly. So yeah, keep on sharing, y'all. But we're gonna get into our read that bags. All right, so this one's yours, right?
My first one.
Yes.
Okay. Ooh, all my bookmarks are falling out, yo. Lamback, this is on page 60 of the book, towards the bottom. The plantation was so structured as to make it, in effect, a sieve for the draining off of natural wealth, and today the latifundio functions in the same way. Each region, once integrated into the world market, experiences a dynamic cycle, then decay sets in with the competition of substitute products, the exhaustion of the soil, or the development of other areas where conditions are better. The initial productive drive fades with the passing years into a culture of poverty, subsistence economy, and lethargy. I can't remember.
Yeah.
The Northeast was Brazil's richest area and is now its poorest. In Barbados and Haiti, human Antipas live condemned to penury. In Cuba, sugar became the master key for U.S. domination at the price of monoculture and the relentless impoverishment of the soil.
Talk about it.
Land back. Yeah, so to me, right, like, and it goes on to go into more detail about different areas and things like that. But what I really saw was like a cycle of destruction, right? Because again, they as in the colonizers, right? And the colony only cares to exploit the system and to exploit people while it's beneficial, right? And because they don't tend to the land, because they don't tend to the people, it ultimately goes bad, right? And it's this constant cycle. So that's why, like, what we're seeing right now in our current day, like this, like crumbling, empire, really, right? It's nothing new. It's nothing new. And it's a constant cycle. But like we've talked about in other books, right? You need something that catalyzes a change in that cycle. Because just like this talks about, right? One thing ends, but they always find something else to exploit, right? And that's the cycle we've been on since they first started colonizing our lands. And yeah, it really I had I read this. I was like, I was tired, and I had like a weird analogy. We're not gonna get into it.
Okay.
We're not gonna get into it. Let's Finding Nemo, but
hey, it could relate.
yeah, so really, okay, it's that qualitative change, right? Where things are going to, and then we are the catalyst of that change. Where we bring hope to the masses of colonized poor working class people, and we all rise up, right? And that is that change, right? In Finding Nemo, y'all remember when Nemo's already at the dentist's office and they like put the pebble in the filter, and then that like makes a mess, but it allows for Nemo to get away, right? It was that change in the cycle. And like, don't judge me, y'all. I was tired. And we pull political education for more evidence.
Yeah, that's how smart we are.
But like oh God, so cheesy. We get to be the pebble, right? Like we are that change. That changes the circumstances, which allows us to get free, to get out of the tank or whatever, out of the cage, right? And yeah, like that's, although that passage like can be really just like sad, that's what it reminds me of, is that we have the opportunity to be the change, and that's what we're doing every time we go out there. That's what we're doing every time we come on live. That's what we're doing, like every time we just decide to get up, every time we decide to complete the work, right? To post that post, or to talk to someone, or like to just push ourselves more and more, like every little bit is that we're pushing the pebble forward, or whatever, making those action plans to get free. And so that was this little passage, like reminded me of that, is like there's hope in the cycle of destruction. And because
that's great,
because we decide that there's hope, right? And we are that hope, and our people are that hope. So
no, QC says block that water filter, block the colony. See,
period.
See the metaphor works, the analogy works. No, I totally unite with that. And you say like the cycle of destruction can benefit us in the end. I think even with that with that metaphor, it's like the tank getting dirty, right? Something it takes crisis to push us forward a lot, right? Because if everything was good and everything, no one really, felt like anything was wrong, why would people have a reason to fight back against any system, right? And then it's the deepening and deepening of a crisis that pushes people and motivates people to do something finally. In this case, it was in Brazil. It's like the land, every time they planted sugar and it ate up all the land and destroyed that land, its fertility, then they moved on to another one. And so eventually there's so much arid land turning into like savannas, in a former rainforest, that the crisis just pushes people to do something. And that's what's happening now, right? Right now with the pandemic, we have the highest inflation, in decades, people losing jobs, quitting jobs, people just getting sick and dying, people like just the brink of like political collapse everywhere. It's just so much crisis, the climate, everything. And you would think, oh my God, everything's so bad, that must mean no one feels motivated to do something. But no, it's especially for revolutionaries, it's that motivates us to go do the work, right? And that's why that work is hard, because you're trying to overturn things in the most desperate of times, right?
That's like what Yessi was saying today in the Revolutionary Church, right? As the fire gets hotter, the hammer gets forged, right? And it's literally that.
Yeah, exactly. See, Finding Nemo brought us there. Yes. Hey. Please. All right. Let's. Oh, see, she said Finding Revolutionary, Finding Nemo. That's right. 100. Hey. All right. So make sure you are dropping your read that backs into the comments, y'all. We of course have a bunch more, so we'll keep going to ours. Make sure you put your read that back in the comments on YouTube or on Facebook. We're live on Black Hammer TV on YouTube and Black Hammer Times on Facebook. So drop them read that backs. Y'all have the right answer for the trivia, so we know you read. But we could go to the next read that back, which I believe is mine, on page 64. Page 64 of the book. So it says Pernambuco now produces less than half as much sugar as the state of Sao Paulo and has a far lower per hectare yield. But Pernambuco's inhabitants, densely concentrated in the humid zone, depend on sugar for their livelihood, while Sao Paulo contains the greatest industrial center in Latin America. In the Northeast, not even progress is progressive, for it is in the hands of a few owners. The food of the minority is the hunger of the majority. Beginning in 1870, the sugar industry was substantially modernized as big central mills were installed, and the absorption of land by latifundios progressed alarmingly, sharpening the hunger of the area. In the 1950s, booming industrialization increased the consumption of sugar in Brazil itself. This stimulated northeastern production, but without causing any rise in the per hectare yield. New lands of inferior quality are planted to cane, and sugar devoured still more of the few food-producing areas. Turned into a wage worker, the peasant who had previously tilled his small plot experienced no benefit, since he did not earn enough money to buy what he had once produced. As usual, the expansion expanded hunger. Land back. So yeah, the poetry of Galeano too, this is the way he writes. But so Pernambuco is this region in Brazil that in the northeast of Brazil, is where the sugar industry on this hemisphere of the earth took off. Like it was northeast Brazil where they did it the most, which is why Brazil had the most Africans brought in chains, as and is to this day, Brazil is the country with the most Africans in the Western Hemisphere. There's more Africans than the United States than anywhere else. And they might have had the labor, but the land was limited, right? And so they, the stolen labor, but the land was limited. And so, they're moving the sugarcane over and over. It's like just destroying the land. And but at a certain point, it's not like this demand for sugar was going away. And so you had like these people living on these latifundios, which are like sharecropping, like Africans here in the United States. And now they have even less land. The only benefit, quote unquote, to being on the latifundio was having a little bit of land to grow stuff on and to live on. But now they don't even have that because it's been completely sucked up to the sugarcane, for the nutrition of the sugarcane. And I think like we have to remember that the earth has its limits, right? The earth can only take so much. The earth can only provide us so much. And I think it's important to remember that that might seem like it's death, but at the same time, it can be revived, right? Like it can be tended to, right? And we can grow new things, and the earth can still provide. And that, we shouldn't look at like the way that they have like, destroyed our land as something that is irreversible, right? Like, we see here that, they try to modernize the industry because of how much land they were killing. And as we modernize the world so that it's not exploitative or not taking out all our resources, we can like reverse this process. And that the expansion won't necessarily mean hunger, but the expansion will mean more food, more food, more resources for us, and not just for us humans, but for other animals on the planet as well. So
yeah, no, land back. Yeah, I really like this read that back as well. Yeah, like with the whole, they did take all the nutrients out of the land, right? And that is a practice that is seen all over, like Abiyala and really anywhere that was colonized, right? And like something else that was like in this book and just like a belief in general was like they planted stuff that was not meant to be there.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Or like I think it was really poetic too, because Galeano, but it was like it was something along the lines of like planted things that like Mother Earth did not intend to be there.
Yeah.
Which again, like if we look at our ancestors' beliefs or like spiritual beliefs, right, is like that the earth gives permission.
Yeah.
Right. And the earth's quote unquote like dying, it's not even dying.
Yeah.
If the way indigenous people look at it is the earth is saying no. Like the earth is rescinding permission or consent. The earth is not consenting to the way that it's being used. And obviously, there's also like the science behind it, right? Of the like what is it called? I forget the technical word, but it's where you plant too much of one thing for too long.
Oh, I don't know the word.
Yeah, it happened here with corn.
Yeah. If you know the word, put it in the comments.
Yeah, because like you're supposed to like every season transfer what you grow on land so that you don't strip it completely of its nutrients, right? And like that's not what, because it was what was being produced.
Monoculture.
No, that's not the word. No, that's not the word. But anyway, yeah.
Everyone's saying it.
What? Mama, is that what it is? Maybe I'm wrong. All right. Well, there it is.
Crop rotation.
Yeah, but it's yes, that is the practice, right? The monoculture is the practice, but it's the consequence of what happens to the.
Oh, when you do monoculture, the consequence.
Yeah, like what happens to the land? There's a word. Anyway, I'll hopefully remember it. But I forgot what I was saying. Depleting the soil. Yes, that is. But yes, that's exactly what it is. But there's a specific word. It doesn't matter.
Look at comrades helping.
I know. Thank you. Anyway, that's the least of it. But yeah, like you said, when we return or when we work to return harmony and balance, right? It will be growing what was indigenous to the land, what Mother Earth intended to be grown there, what Mother Earth intended to be used for in those areas, right? And like for this to be happening in Brazil too, like it never stopped, right? Like because it says like land was limited, but you look at Brazil and it.
That's a big
limit where, and especially when you think about how many people were living there blissfully already, by using the land for what it was intended for, like coexisting with the earth. And yeah, it just things like this, just like no, not erosion. Things like this, just it always points out like how important or what big of a difference it is, like our relationship, like as colonized people, our relationship to the earth versus the colonizers. Because just like how they see us, just how they see Mother Earth the same way, right? Is as a resource, as something to be exploited, as something to be used for their own benefit, without realizing that the way that they use us, the way that they use the earth, will come back and bite them in the
in
the A. It will come back. So yeah,
land back. Yeah, no, exactly right. They think that they are completely taking something out of the world. Again, all they do is create things, right? They create revolutionaries. They create the ground for crisis in order for people to rise up, right? So as much as they take away, they're putting a lot back out, right? And that back, the stuff they're putting back out is going to come and bite them in the A.
It's physics.
Yes, it's
So
physics.
it's a
Yes,
third law. You know, for every action, there's
there's
an
an
equal and opposite
opposite,
reaction.
and watch us defeat the laws of physics because it's not gonna be equal. It'll be a reaction that's even stronger than the one that came at us. Whoa, we're gonna defy physics, y'all, with a revolution.
Exactly.
Mm, mm.
But then our bigger reaction will provide the equal like reward for us and the land, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Okay. All right. I see Ren has a read that back, but that's also my read that back. So we'll get to that one. We'll get to that one. Um, let's see. I want to see. I think it's on page 56. Oh, I think. Oh, here. Okay, let's do Yabe's beat. Yeah, Yabe's read that back right here on page 56. Let's see. It says, thanks to, I'm going to read the quote and then read how they summarized it. Thanks to this historical graciousness on the part of the Portuguese, Britain could apply rapid and efficient technical innovations. Europe's financial center moved from Amsterdam to London. According to British sources, the value of Brazilian gold. This might have been from the last one. Brazilian gold arriving in London reached 50,000 pounds a week in some periods. Without this tremendous accumulation of gold reserves, Britain would not have been able later on to confront Napoleon. Yes, and they talk about Napoleon again in this chapter as well, right? It's again without these like resources from these colonies in these colonized lands, they would never have been able to do any confrontation with even with each other, right? We want to say like, oh, like, without these resources, they couldn't confront us or something. No, they can't even confront each other without our resources. What kind of wars would they have had if they never colonized? They
would have starved.
They would have starved. Yeah, they would have just been like killing each other, and nothing would be come out of it, right? Which is what they were doing for centuries before they were going all over the world colonizing. They were killing each other, like with the Goths versus the whatever. All those European. They were just tribes in Europe. They weren't even nations. They were just random tribes in Europe warring with each other for horrible land and didn't grow anything but beets. Yeah, just beets and celery. And so they were stuck with that, and yeah, and like they wouldn't have been able to fight anything. There's a in this section that we read, there was even one where they said George Washington, right? That George Washington wouldn't even have had weapons, right? So like the foundry that made the first weapons for the American Revolution was started by these two brothers from Rhode Island, and they got that money through the slave trade through sugar. So they wouldn't even have been able to separate from Britain and have their own, the United States would have never been born again if it wasn't for these processes of colonialism and this, in the slave trade. Yes. And like Yabe summarizes, this is what the political feudal elites of Europe led through the destruction of the colonized world. They got these resources to create a culture of war, right? This culture of giant global war didn't exist until they got the resources to make it happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And like that's why we are anti-colonial, right? Because we take the time to get back to the root of it, right? Which is colonialism, and that any contradiction, any whatever, like literally the American Revolution can be only possible through this like colonialism, like the colonialism. Jeez. But like that's why we get to the root of it, and that's why like we are trying to overturn that, right? Yeah. We're trying to overturn and it obviously like it happened, right? And it's about finding a new way forward. What's that called? Negation, right? I know that book.
Yeah, that book is imprinted in your mind.
It really is, as it should be. As it should be. It's a good book. I learned a lot of new words. But yeah, like that's why we are anti-colonial and not just like what are
not
what do they call themselves?
Like abolitionists.
That I think, or like the liberal version of like revolutionaries, right? Because it's like,
Yeah,
oh, change the system.
revolutionists. Yeah.
Like no, they like they want to like destroy the system within the system.
Yeah.
It makes absolutely no sense to me. But like because we've gotten to this route, right? Like that's what makes us different from the Marx people.
Yeah, the Ku Klux communists. Those Ku Klux communists who think that land is not the issue and that colonized people are just going to be on the side when we understand it's our four principle unity that we are the true leadership, right? And it's never going to be them. Like they talk about in this section, of the book, how the resources coming from these colonized lands was creating wage workers, right? Like Britain. And I'm talking about abolitionism. So I thought this was so interesting that like they said how England was really ran sugar. England ran sugar. It had like 10 sugar refineries, and like it took the hands of sugar off of like so many other European countries. But I thought it was interesting. Like, so why were they the first ones to abolish slavery? Right? I was like, that's a weird jump, right? Like, oh yeah, we're gonna run sugar because we're gonna make the most, but we're gonna ban the cheap labor. And it's because, and so like again, abolition, people want to say, oh yeah, it's just a moral stance. Like, I just don't want slavery to happen. I just don't want these bad systems. When abolition has its roots with England saying, you know what, we need people who can buy the stuff that we're refining, right? And like at that moment, there was too many people forced to work free labor and too many indentured servants, too many people who had no money. So they needed to make people who made money to buy things. And so they created wage workers. So like, let's stop slavery so we can have people who make money so they can spend it on the sugar that we're refining, right? And like that's like, it just shows again, like it's not a moral issue. It's not an issue of, oh, this is what we believe in or this is wrong. No, they're just like, how do we increase our profit off of these stolen resources, right? Oh, goodness gracious, right? And of course, it's England. That's the one that's like that, because right, trying to pretend they're all high and mighty, like, oh, no more slavery. And
it's like, sorry, we did that.
Yeah, it's like, no, we just want you to work for minimum wage to buy our sugar. And it's not even your sugar, mofo. Yes.
Tell emoji.
Way back. Let's we'll come back. Keep on dropping your read that backs in the comments. But we are going to go to our next read that back, which I believe is mine. Yours. Oh, okay. We'll be back on you. Go ahead.
You just went.
I know, but I thought we're just getting so into it. I didn't even know where we were.
I'm back. Yes, this is on page 66. Kind of down. Anyway, in 1786, the colony brought in 27,000 slaves. In the following year, 40,000. Revolution broke out in the fall of 1791, and in 1 month, September, 200 sugar plantations went up in flames. Fires and battles were continuous as the rebel slaves pushed France's armies to the sea. Ships sailed containing ever more Frenchmen and ever less sugar. The war split rivers of blood, wrecked the plantations, and paralyzed the country, and by the end of the century, production had fallen to almost nothing. By November 1803, almost all of the once flourishing colony was in ashes and ruin. Land back. Land back. Yeah, so this is talking about Haiti, right?
Haiti. Haiti.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And the slave rebellions that we talked about, right? And yeah, like again, it ties back into my first read that back of that that change, right? And the people of Haiti constantly rise up to be that change, right?
Yeah.
Like not only back then, but like even with the neo-colonialists, right? Like last year, right? That was last year.
Yeah. It was.
That was like only a couple months ago. But yeah, like that's what happens when you find unity in your same enemy, right? Where like I bet you all the people that we're fighting don't agree on everything, but they agreed on the one goal.
Yes.
They agreed on the one problem, and they agreed on the one central thing that everyone wanted to overturn, which was like their colonialism, right? And they work together. And like I said, like even, and and like Mao talks about it too, where like you have to burn your houses, you have to break your roads, and like yeah, it'll hurt and it'll be hard to rebuild it, but it will be yours to rebuild.
Yes, exactly.
Right. And like that's exactly, like they understood that as well. It was like, yes, we have to destroy everything.
Yes.
We have to, like, quote unquote, bring everything to ruins, because that's what will get them out.
Yes.
Right. Because if we stop cooperating, if we stop giving them stuff to take from us, or like, if we stop complying,
Mm-hmm.
then they will have nothing to do there.
Mm-hmm.
Except try to fight for what no longer exists because we destroyed it.
Exactly.
Right. And it's not that we're destroying what's ours, we're destroying what they use from us. Right. And since it's there, we can rebuild it bigger and better. Right. Like we can bring back harmony into the land. We can bring like tools to like overturn the contradictions that do exist within our own people. Right. But that's for us to do. And so again, like it was another like it sounds a little rough, but it does end again in that hopefulness of like what comes after the ashes and ruins, right? What comes after our scorched earth or whatever, right? Like and the possibilities are truly endless, because it'll be ours to decide what to do. And that makes me happy.
Yeah, it's like the phoenix, right? The phoenix is born in the ashes. But and yeah, like with Haiti, Haiti, the indigenous name of the island, y'all. That that burning of the plantations was the way to break the economic backbone of France and of all these like colonizing places. Like if we take out their means of income that even fund their ability to even do this to us, that's one way to split our dependency off them. And we'll get into it, but there's a lot of talk about that dependency, right? And like, what does it mean that as Haiti was like, I'm gonna bring Ren's read that back here into play because it goes with this. It's from the same section. It says, but the cash indemnity was a millstone around the necks of those independent Haitians who survived the bloodbaths of the successive military expeditions against them. The country was born in ruins and never recovered. Today it is the poorest in Latin America. The crisis in Haiti produced the sugar boom in Cuba, which quickly became the world's top producer, right? And I saw the comment. Love you too.
Whoever you are.
I know who it is.
I know who it is.
We love you too, XVRR. But yes, no, that being born in like ruin is basically saying like, what step did Haiti have to do after the revolution, right? Sugar, even though they wanted to get rid of me, we know it's you, Kino. Land back, Kino. We know that sugar was what they were producing beforehand, but and they wanted to stop that exploitation. But what did they have after the revolution? They had sugar. Right? And the Cuba was in the same boat, right? Like, okay, we have this thing that can make us resources. We just have to have control over it and sell it as we diversify how we get resources and income and like prosperity for our people. And it's not easy. That's why it takes work, like you were saying. Like Mao said it, Ho Chi Minh said it. Everything might be in ruin, but we are gonna work hard to rebuild everything so that it's not just what it was. Not so that it's not what it was before, but better than before. And we have pride and honor in what we've created because we created it. It wasn't put for us. It wasn't made for us by someone else. It's something that we did with our own hands for our own future, in a future that isn't going to murder us or kill our future generations, right?
And that's really like our point number one in its full sense, right? Dictatorship over our labor of like rebuilding, right? And then dictatorship over what we create, our land, our labor, our resources, right? And like it really is that, like to get there, it's not going to be easy. Like no one is saying it's going to be easy, right? But it is going to be great. And it is when we get there, like if any, it's going to be the hardest thing we ever do. But it'll be worth it because what we get out of it is liberation. Our our lives. Exactly. And for generations to come, right? Like, and that's, what else is there?
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. That action plan, Kino said, right? Like that's what you have to have
Hmm.
after a revolution. You have it for the revolution, but you need it even more so afterwards to do that building, right? And to do that healing,
Exactly.
like our Kino says, our medical treatment, right? It's like that healing
Hmm.
of ourselves and of the world, afterwards, and we have to plan that out.
Exactly.
Yeah, laying back. Yeah, no, for real. Yeah, that's a great read that back, and everything with Haiti is so powerful. It defeated Napoleon, so like our ancestors defeated Napoleon, y'all. The rest of this ain't gonna be hard. Napoleon was taking out half of Europe. You
For
know,
real. Like
like
fun fact, not so fun fact about me. I took French for a really long time, and so I like French history was like a big thing
Mhm.
from whatever. And yeah, like Napoleon really was just like, I want the crown, actually,
Yeah.
just in case you. And they started from there, and then took all of Europe,
Hmm.
and then I mean, he thought he could take Russia, but then,
Yeah, that
but like it's
is.
so like like all of Europe couldn't defeat Napoleon,
Hmm.
but this island did,
Yes.
right? And
Hmm.
that's because what? Colonized.
Yes, colonized brilliance and the action plan and like
Strength
organization.
and the passion, like the love,
Hmm.
right, for each other and for their land and for their futures. Like that's
Yeah. Look, tell me, how is it that colonized people defeated Napoleon and France to become free in Haiti, but the white workers of Europe couldn't organize enough to defeat Napoleon themselves? So why do you expect to be the leaders of the revolution in the colonies if you can't even handle it in Europe?
when you're all right there
When you're all right there.
next to each other and like one enemy, right? Like if anything was gonna like unify y'all, it's that. But like y'all weak, y'all are so weak, and like this little island of colonized, poor, malnourished people said no.
Enslaved people.
Enslaved, literally enslaved people who like were malnourished to the point of death
Mhm.
all the time. Like they would die on the fields every single day.
Mhm.
And in like enough of them said no,
Yeah.
and that was it.
Yeah.
Like that was it.
Hmm. Exactly.
Like we look to our like to our ancestors to find that strength, to find that, right? Like who do you have to look to? Like
Mm-mm.
you are the colonizer. Like it.
Mm-mm.
Anyways.
Yeah, we're so strong, y'all, and that's what you got to remember. Like yes. And again, and those, and the people who helped the slave trade happen, like you're right, they submitted their will, sold their souls, right, to wickedness, indeed,
Mm-hmm.
like Queen Elizabeth.
I can't believe she's still alive.
No, the first one.
Oh.
The first one, who was also bad. That's
They're
how
all
that's
bad.
how long it's been. They're like 400 years apart and doing the exact same thing. We're gonna get to our next read that back, y'all. All right. So this is on page 72, and this one's mine. All right. So just like how we talked about how Haiti's independence made the sugar industry in Cuba boom because Cuba was still a colony, and so it just shifted. Haiti was the big producer, and it shifted to Cuba. So since the country's economy moved in step with its sugar harvest, the purchasing power of Cuban exports between 1952 and 1956 was no greater than it had been 30 years earlier, although foreign currency was much more needed. In the 1930s, when the crisis deepened, the economy's dependence, instead of helping to break it, newly installed factories were actually dismantled to sell to other countries. When the revolution triumphed on the first day of 1959, Cuba's industrial development was poor and sluggish. Over half the production was concentrated in La Habana, and the few technologically modern factories were managed by remote control from the United States. A Cuban economist, Regino Botti, co-author of the Sierra Guerrilleros economic thesis, cites the example of a Nestle's affiliate producing condensed milk in Bayamo. When there was a breakdown, the technician simply phoned Connecticut and told them that what he had thought had gone wrong. He was told at once what to do about it, and he simply followed instructions without having to bother his head about theory. If this did not do the trick, a plane would arrive 4 hours later with a team of specialists. After nationalization, we could no longer phone for help, and the few technicians who might have been able to deal with minor faults had gone. This illustrates precisely what problems the revolution faced when it embarked on the adventure of converting the colony into a fatherland. Right? Land back. So again, independence and winning revolution doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy right afterwards, right? It shows that you have to build. So some people might question, oh, you had a revolution, but how come you're still calling, U.S., technical support? It's because you know what, they had to, right? Because they just freed their country. They don't have all the resources and information yet to do it, right? And they still have to be dependent. It's not like they won a revolution along with dozens of other nations around them so they could all collectively do it. They were still an island, and so they did that, right? But then as nationalization went on, Castro was like, we got to cut the cord, cut the cord, cut the cord. And they cut the cord. And so they had to figure it out on themselves. And like, that's the adventure, right? That Galeano says of, turning your colony into a fatherland. Like, it takes work to take it from that formerly dependent, not independent self to an independent, fully functioning, self-determined, nation of people, right? The same, yes, and the same thing can be said about welfare. Is exactly what I was going to talk about. That Ren says, CIC said they give us crumbs so we don't take the world, and that's exactly what it is. If they kept if Castro kept letting the workers call the phone company, are they going to take control of the whole industry? No, right? Because then they're going to keep letting that plane of people, specialists come, then more planes come, then more boats come, and then you're back in colonialism again, right? And so you have to cut the cord, and that's what this teaches us. And of course, it can leave people. It can leave a nation poor, but only in revolution can you succeed. Real quick, so my family in Boriken were sugar people, right? Like in Guayama. So my family's from Guayama, in Boriken, which was like the third biggest sugar place in the island. And when it all became like latifundios, right? Like the sharecropping type stuff. That's like literally that's it. Like my family was working the same plantation that they were enslaved on until like they came to Chicago, right? Like my grandma was cutting sugarcane in like the same exact place, and like the lack of like sugar becoming like a good commodity, made the time my family's really really poor. Like it made it really poor, and because like the cord's not cut because it's still under colonialism, they have to depend on other industries to like survive. And so like the town is a huge place for coal now, like coal processing. It doesn't come from there, but like there's huge mounds of like ash heap like in Guayama, and like which like for instance during the hurricane got all blown in the wind and out of the way, so now it's in the soil. So the soil can't even grow the amount of like sugar or other industry whatever that is even remaining. And so it's just like, yeah, hashtag cut the cord. If you don't cut the cord from the colony, from the colonizer, then that dependency is going to just make you colonize again. It's going to put you back into that system. So yeah, land back.
Yeah, land back. No, full unity. Because like this is especially important to keep in mind, like when we know that it's going to be the poor working class who brings the revolution, right? Who's going to lead the revolution? Because of the way the system is set up, right? It's not us who has the education on this. It's not us who has like the colonial training on these things, right? And that's something that we're going to have to learn as we go. It's going to be something we learn after revolution. But that's fine, because it's not those people with those trainings that are going to get us liberation. Right? Like it's not the petty boo, it's not whatever. Like even if you want to fall into the leadership, right? Like cool, you can teach us how to work a computer, I guess. Like that's fine, but that's an after thing. Like we need
that's up to us.
Exactly. That like watch though. Like it's up to our poor working class colonized people to take that step, right, and to get us to liberation. And with that same tenacity, right, with that same brilliance and that same like hunger for liberation, like that's what's gonna get us through like nationalization, right, through that. And like look at Cuba now. Like Cuba is leading in preventative medicine. Cuba is leading in natural event response, or natural event like like I don't
response,
like but pre-response, like not after.
That's
like
true.
Before.
Prevention.
But it's not.
Well, they're not preventing the natural disaster.
That's why I didn't know what I mean.
Preparedness.
Oh my god, it's my whole committee. Right, like I've been chief of the Natural Events Preparedness Committee, and if there's one country that I'm taking from the most, it's Cuba. Like they,
Mhm.
they organize like island wide evacuations,
Mhm.
like drills in advance so that people know, right? They like their weather watch system, like there is, God, so beautiful,
Yeah.
so beautiful. And that didn't happen because they were like attached to other countries' information. That didn't happen because they were relying on someone else to tell them what to do, right? That happened because they took it into their own hands to learn their climate, to learn like their island, and
Yeah.
to train their people,
Mhm.
right? And that happens over time. That doesn't happen just because the colonialists are gone, right? Like
Yeah.
it just it takes hard work and determination, right? And like what we've been talking about, like, it takes, like, you have to have hope.
Yeah.
Like you have to want the potential, right? Like you have to see an endless potential.
Yeah.
Like you have to be almost overwhelmed by thinking about everything that can be, and like everything that we can build, right? Because there literally is no limit to what we can do.
Mhm.
And like you have to let that be the fire, right? And
Yeah.
like and implementing the tools that we've talked about, right? The action plan, the discipline, more than anything. Because you can daydream all day, but if you don't have discipline to put your
That's
action
true.
plans into action,
That's true.
you're not gonna get anywhere.
Mhm.
But yeah, it just like using the tools, but like that revolutionary optimism
Yeah.
has to be there, or else like it gets nihilistic really fast.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. You can't get nihilistic really fast if you don't see like the steps, and so they can look back too and see that I did this, and that's why I'm in this better situation today. Right, like to be able, not just to be able to see the good situation you're in now, but the work that you put in and the steps you had to take to get there.
Yeah.
Like that's the way that you can like step out of that, like that nihilism and that like that pain of just seeing the world and seeing like, hey, you know what, like a good future could be created, and I'm in a better one now because of what I did in the past.
And because of like our fourth point, right? Our comrades.
Yeah.
Like when you think of like finding hope in the people, and because yeah, like seeing how many people you bring in and their development and their love and and seeing that just like grow and grow and grow, like you have like hope is not a choice at some point, right? Like it gets to a point where like you're doing the work, and even if you see nothing for a while, there comes a point where you can look back and be like, we weren't here a couple months ago.
Yeah.
We didn't have this a couple months ago, right? Like that hard work doesn't always pay off right away, but like you see the love in your comrades, you see all of the new comrades you're developing and stuff like that, and like that is and there's so many things that like make you really realize how like inevitable our victory is.
Yeah.
And like that, it just it's really nice.
It is. It is really nice. Yes. It gives you a lot of hope. Oh, I'm feeling warm inside. All right. Well, let's go to your next video back because it's literally right afterwards.
Se vale llorar.
Yeah.
Again. Yeah. Did you see the fatherland and then
Yeah.
all right. Yeah, mine is on page 73, just that next paragraph. Cuba was crippled by its dependent status, and walking on its own feet has not been easy. Half of its children did not go to school in 1958, but as Fidel Castro has said many times, the ignorance was much broader and more serious than mere illiteracy. The big campaign of 1961 mobilized an army of young volunteers to teach all Cubans to read and write, and the results astonished the world. According to UNCENCO's Department of Education, Cuba now has the lowest percentage of illiterates and the highest percentage attending primary and secondary school in Latin America. But the inherited curse of ignorance cannot be overcome overnight or in 12 years. A lack of efficient technicians, administrative incompetence, and disorganization of production, and a bureaucratic fear of creative imagination and decision still obstruct the development of socialism. Yet, despite the whole structure of impotence forged by 4.5 centuries of oppression, Cuba is being reborn with an enthusiasm that never flags. Against obstacles, it matches its strength, its gaiety, thank you, and its audacity. Land back. Yeah, like kind of what I was just talking about, right? like it's gonna take time. It's gonna take time to train people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite my favorite part is um match it with like have the audacity, y'all.
Yeah.
Like have the freaking audacity to do the work, have the audacity to dream
Yeah.
about completely destroying illiteracy, right?
Yeah.
Have the audacity to dream about like ending type 2 diabetes. Have the audacity to dream like
Yes.
to dream and work towards having
Mhm.
no one die of natural events. Like have the audacity to end hunger. Have the audacity to do all like have that
Yes.
audacity to do that for your people and to do
Mhm.
that with your people, right? Like that and have the audacity to be patient.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
like because that's the part, right? Like have the audacity to do the work day in day out, whether you see results or not.
Yeah.
Like have the audacity to keep going, right? Like
Mhm.
like
Yes.
audacity is not a bad thing.
No, sir.
It's incredible, right? It's incredible.
Okay.
These they have an audacity for a lot of you can have audacity to dream and do better, y'all. Like they like have the audacity to win the world. Like it just
preaching. Y'all hearing this? This is straight up preaching. What? Go ahead, keep going.
It just like it should give you that enthusiasm, right? That like that Cuba talks about. Like, y'all, Fidel Castro had the audacity, and instilled that audacity in his soldiers, right? And his guerrillas, like have y'all like these dreams, right? Like not that while ago, like we had like the task of like writing down your visions, right? And so we all got to like, oh, like what's your biggest dream, right? Like it have the audacity to make those real.
Yeah, make it happen. Yes.
Right, like think of what you want in the liberated world. Think about what you want during like throughout the revolution, right? Because not all of my visions were like once we win. Some of them was like how we get there or the process of it, and like have the audacity to make that happen. And like if you do that, like there's with your comrades, right? With discipline, with like those plans of actions, and like that audacity, like we will get there.
Yeah.
But you have to first have like if you don't have the audacity, you like audacity is what makes you believe that it's possible.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's why some people be having the audacity to try us, right? Like some people be having the audacity to try to say something, to attack our work, to attack our commander, to attack our leadership. Like they be having the audacity, but guess what? Ours is bigger.
Yes.
Like take it out, we'll measure. You know, like ours is bigger. Like our audacity as colonized people.
Yes.
Anyways.
Yes, and I like what you said, to have the audacity to have patience. But thing is, that amount of patience could pay off really quickly, because this book was written in 1973 originally, y'all. And so we'll measure. This book was written in 1973, and the revolution happened in Cuba in 1959. So in 14 years, they have international recognition for like highest rates of literacy. 14 years ain't long.
That's one school generation type thing.
So from kindergarten to high school, you done changed an entire nation's literacy rate.
Because people want to learn.
Yes.
See, like you just have to give them the opportunity, right? Like it just, yeah.
Whew, that was a sermon. See, preaching.
It's the cafecito.
Yes. Be awake now. Oh no, yes. Oh yes, I love it. Yes, hashtag have the audacity. Put that in the comments. Hashtag have the audacity. I also like what QC says here. I'm always finding excitement every day doing revolution. Welding my thoughts to political education pushes me every day to work hard with my comrades, fight liberalism, the colony, and petty blue elites.
And you know who else be giving sermons? QC.
Yes.
QC be giving sermons.
In like a minute. Like
exactly. Just like those minute videos, just boom, right in the face.
Yeah.
Like
yes, perfect. It's like summed up and just like, oh, like it's a punch.
It really is.
Yeah. I love our comments.
Me too.
All right. We can just go to our last read that back, y'all. Just to wrap it up, because I'm not sure. I just need to get over with, because I ain't gonna top that. No, but also I want to keep on informing and politically educated about people.
Yes.
All right, this is on page 76, y'all. It was still on Cuba, right? We're still talking about Cuba and it's sugar. So it says Cubans became radicalized along with their revolution as challenges and responses, blows and counterblows between Havana and Washington followed one upon the other, and as the revolution proceeded to turn its promises of social justice into solid facts. It built 170 new hospitals and as many polyclinics and made medical care free. It multiplied by three the number of students enrolled at all levels and also made education free. More than 300,000 children and youths benefit today from scholarships, and boarding schools and kindergartens have proliferated. A large part of the population pays no rent, and no one pays for water, light, public telephones, funerals, or sporting events. Spending on social services increased 5 times in a few years. But now that everyone has education and shoes, necessities multiply geometrically and production can only grow arithmetically, like math. Cuba has been compelled to escalate its exports, and sugar continues to be its major resource. Many products are in short supply. In 1970, fruit in refrigerators and clothing. Queues, like lines, part of the daily routine, are not solely due to disorganized distribution. The essential cause of scarcity is the new abundance of consumers. The country now belongs to everyone. Consumption is by all, not just the few. Thus, it is scarcity of an opposite kind to that in other Latin American countries. The revolution is indeed living through the hard times of transition and sacrifice. The Cubans themselves have learned that socialism is built with clenched teeth and that revolution is no evening stroll. But after all, if the future came on a platter, it would not be of this world.
Oof.
Whew.
Oof.
Ooh, that's a word, right? That's a word. If the future came on a platter, it would not be of this world. So yes, y'all, Cuba has still and is still transitioning, right? From revolution into a fully functioning self-determined nation. China is still transitioning from revolution to a fully self-determined nation. It takes work. It takes clenched teeth, right? It takes sacrifice. It takes all of those things that are uncomfortable for us, like CIC was talking about in the Revolution Church today, right? It can take that discomfort. It can take that lack of feeling like things are good to move to another point where things are good for everyone. Right. And that is something that our people have to be retaught. It's something that we understood, right, as we were rebelling on the sugar plantations, as we were rebelling on on the ships, right? As we were, making it harder for colonizers to exploit our labor and our land. But it's something we have to learn again. And it's, liberals really drive into us that hard work is something to run away from, right? And that we shouldn't be working, that we should be, just be given everything. But again, just like we talk about here, that dependency will kill us. That dependency was going to kill Cuba if they held on to it. Of course, they had to hold on to sugar for a little bit itself, but they had to belong to everyone. If we are going to continue to be dependent on this government because the liberals keep pushing welfare on us, keep pushing voting on us, keep pushing all these things on us to make us more and more dependent on the United States, we're going to never find that future that is of this world, that is of this earth. And so, that's something that I just wanted to, reiterate, that it takes hard work. It takes hard work still to win this and complete this. Yeah.
Exactly. And like these things, right? Like, oh, you wait in line. Oh, there's like scarcity or whatever. That's what people like to
use examples.
Like, oh, like this is you in socialism or you in communism, and you're just waiting for everything. And it's like, you know why? Because of you.
Yeah. And we're still waiting for things now.
Exactly. And like the thing is, like, being uncomfortable is how we live in the colony, right? Like, especially as poor working class people, we don't live comfortably. But there's a difference between like we talk about like living frugally. I also just really like that word. Yes. Frugality. It feels good to say. But it doesn't always feel good to live it, right? It doesn't always feel good to live it. But like I will choose frugality every day if it means that we're getting closer to this, right?
Yep.
And like that's what we have to teach our people, right?
Yes, exactly.
That it's like, yes, we're getting free, but it's not going to be easy, and we're going to have to like skimp on some stuff sometimes. Like things are going to be tight, which is not something that is new to our
exactly,
people, right?
exactly.
It's not something that is new, and that's another reason why it can't be these petty boos who lead us there, because they be hungry for one day and they're dying, you know. And it's like like I remember having to like boil the out of something so that we could eat it again, right? Like having to skimp, having to like make one dish last you a whole week is not something that petty boo people can do, or like will complain about it all the time, you know. Like the times that we've had to be frugal and we be making the huevos con tortilla and or la tortilla con frijoles, or like la sopita or whatever, that like we eat it for a whole
Vienna sausages.
So we eat it for a whole week, right? Like for us, for me, that's nostalgic. I love it. I love it. But like that will make some people leave, right?
Yeah.
And they will say, "Oh, that's abusive." And
You're
like,
starving me.
You're starving me. It's like, what are you gonna do when it's just you and the forest, bro? Like, what are you gonna do? Like our people know struggle, right? And if struggle, there's no struggle more worth it than for liberation.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that, you know. And even now, like the frugality that we see now, or that we try to practice now, like is nothing compared to what's gonna come when we do have to feed the whole nation.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Because when we do have to redistribute all of those things into everybody, like it's gonna be hard, right? And it's something that we're gonna have to politically educate the people on too.
Yeah.
Or like this is just a step. This is just a step. Like we will get there. We will get there, right? And like that, like you said, that's what Cuba's doing. That's what China's still doing, right? But like China's war on poverty, like
they're kicking its
like they really are, right? And like that's something that like, we're gonna implement, you know, and it's possible, right?
Yes.
And like seeing other like liberated countries do it, like is also like that's why we study our revolutionary ancestors, and that's why we study liberated countries now, because it shows us different ways, right? Like it just it's gonna take work, but the struggle is gonna be worth it. And like clenched teeth and working hard, right? Like and there are days where you're just gonna scream because like no, it's gonna get hard, and we're human, and like it's have a bad day, you know. But like don't let that bad day like make you quit. Like that, I think that's the difference, is like people be having a rough time and they just dip. And like to what? The colony? Like to go back to what you ran away from? Like what made you find revolution, right? Was how what the suffering that you saw in the world, and to turn back on revolution because it was hard, to go back to that which made you find like it makes absolutely no sense. Like just it
I'm gonna cry, y'all. I'm trying to hold it together. Yes. No, I unite. Yeah, no, I unite. I'm like holding it together.
It's the second week in a row, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's just so true. It's just so true what you're saying, and that you know it's hard work, but you know, have you worked harder for the person beating you? Have you worked harder for the people that made you suffer? Like hard work is not something that is bad on its own. It's something that you know we've known, that poor working class people know. It's just imagine a world where we can use that hard work to help people live, not just survive but live, you know, and to really be able to do the things they enjoy and not worry about starving, not worry about water, not worry about housing. To just imagine, you know, like what is your dream outside of colonialism? Is your dream to, you know, to write? Is your dream to you know, learn how to calculate, you know, the distance to another planet, like whatever it is? Imagine being able to do that without the worries of without the worry of, am I going to be able to eat today? And that's the world that can be made, and there's no reason it can't be made. You know, like we said, have the audacity to imagine a world like that,
and the audacity to work for it.
And the audacity to work for it. Like, yes,
that's it.
Woo! We dropping gems. We dropping gems. We shining bright like a diamond. Hashtag Rihanna. All right. No. So yeah, y'all. We're gonna go to our announcements, so we can wrap up this episode.
So
But
Chief Ojo can go cry.
yeah, I'm holding it together. All right, y'all. So make sure you watch the Revolutionary Church every Sunday. It's live on the Black Camera Facebook. It's facebook.com/blackcamera.org. Or you can watch it uploaded on youtube.com/blackcamera.tv. All right, so that you can see what our Atlanta chapter has been doing, creating the largest street ministry in Atlanta. All right, so make sure you tune in every Sunday on Facebook or YouTube. And then make sure you call to drop the charges on the Atlanta chapter, on the Atlanta Hammers, who were arrested for doing the Revolutionary Church, for feeding the homeless, for clothing the homeless. Call 404-658-6618, extension 5, to demand that those charges be dropped on them, right? Because our people deserve better than to have revolutionaries who are just serving them for food and clothes.
The audacity of the colony.
The audacity of the colony to arrest people feeding the homeless, yo. All right. And then also keep in mind, this coming Thursday, February 3rd, is our 3rd birthday bash webinar, talking about all our successes this past year, which has been our best year of serving the people. Like we've done amazing, and it's getting bigger and better, like in such a short amount of time.
Yes.
And that's because of hard work. Because of hard work. Ooh, all of a sudden, when the hard workers were left, things got done. Oh no, who would have thought? Oh, goodness gracious.
I love us.
Yes. All right. And so yes, tune in. Make sure you register for it at tinyurl.com/bhbday. All right. And then last but not least, what are we reading for next week?
Same book, Open Veins of Latin America, from pages 83 to 115. I think this is the most pages we've read in one sitting, so get to reading today.
Yeah.
Start marking your read that backs, so you come prepared.
Yes.
And we're gonna be dropping more fire.
Yes, dropping more fire, because this book is full of fire. But you know who's even more full of fire? Our comrades, you. So we want to hear that from you as well, right? But I believe that's all of our announcements. Make sure you tune in next Sunday night for the Revolutionary Book Trap. Sultry.
It's day somewhere.
Well, people can have a sultry daytime too. Cardi B said it. They like it. They like it in the morning too.
Oh Jesus.
Okay, I gotta stop. All right, y'all. Lay it back. Y'all have a great revolutionary week. Kick the behind of colonialism and white power. And we will see you next week.
Next week, y'all.
All right.